in 1962, with Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, I think for people like me in the world of the making of things, the canary in the mine wasn't singing. And so the question that we might not have birds became kind of fundamental to those of us wandering around looking for the meadowlarks that seemed to have all disappeared. And the question was, were the birds singing? Now, I'm not a scientist, that'll be really clear. But, we've just come from this discussion of what a bird might be. What is a bird? Well, in my world, this is a rubber duck. It comes in California with a warning. This product contains chemicals known by the state of California to cause cancer and birth defects or other reproductive harm. This is a bird. What kind of culture would produce a product of this kind and then label it and sell it to children? I think we have a design problem. Someone heard 6 hours of talk that I gave called the Monticello Dialogues on NPR and sent me this as a thank you note.
We realize that design is a signal of intention, but it also has to occur within a world, and we have to understand that world in order to imbue our designs with inherent intelligence. And so as we look back at the basic state of affairs in which we design, we in a way need to go to the primary condition to understand the operating system and the frame conditions of a planet. And I think the exciting part of that is the good news that's there. Because the news is the news of abundance and not the news of limits. And I think as our culture tortures itself now with tyrannies and concerns over limits and fear, we can add this other dimension of abundance that is coherent, driven by design, and start to imagine what that would be like to share.
It was a nice thing to get. That was one sentence. Henry James would be proud. This is, I put it down at the bottom, but that was extemporaneous, obviously. The fundamental issue is that, for me, design is the first signal of human intention. So what are our intentions? And what would our intentions be if we wake up in the morning, we have designs on the world? Well, what would our intention be as a species, now that we're the dominant species? And it's not just stewardship and dominion debate, because really dominion is implicit in stewardship, because how could you dominate something you'd killed? And stewardship's implicit in dominion, because you can't be a steward of something if you can't dominate it. So the question is, what is the first question for designers? Now, as guardians, let's say the state, for example, which reserves the right to kill, the right to be duplicitous, and so on. The question we're asking the guardian at this point is, how are we meant to secure local societies, create world peace, and save the environment? But I don't know that that's the common debate. Commerce, on the other hand, is relatively quick, essentially creative, highly effective and efficient, and fundamentally honest, because we can't exchange value for very long if we don't trust each other. So we use the tools of commerce primarily for our work, but the question we bring to it is, how do we love all the children of all species for all time? And so we start our designs with that question. Because what we realize today is that modern culture appears to have adopted a strategy of tragedy. If we come here and say, well, I didn't intend to cause global warming on the way here, and we say it's not part of my plan, then we realize it's part of our de facto plan, because it's the thing that's happening because we have no other plan. And I was at the White House for President Bush, meeting with every federal department and agency, and I pointed out that they appear to have no plan. If the end game is global warming, they're doing great. If the end game is mercury toxification of our children downwind of coal-fired plants as they scuttle the Clean Air Act, then I see that our education program should be explicitly defined as brain death for all children, no child left behind. So the question is, how many federal officials are ready to move to Ohio and Pennsylvania with their families? So if you don't have an end game of something delightful, then you're just moving chess pieces around if you don't know you're taking the king. So perhaps we could develop a strategy of change, which requires humility. And in my business as an architect, it's unfortunate the word humility and the word architect have not appeared in the same paragraph since the Fountainhead. So if anybody here has trouble with the concept of design humility, reflect on this. It took us 5,000 years to put wheels on our luggage. So, as Kevin Kelly pointed out, there is no end game. There's an infinite game, and we're playing in that infinite game. And so we call it Cradle to Cradle. And our goal is very simple. This is what I presented to the White House. Our goal is a delightfully diverse, safe, healthy, and just world with clean air, clean water, soil, and power, economically, equitably, ecologically, and elegantly enjoyed, period. What don't you like about this? Which part of this don't you like? So we realize we want full diversity, even though it can be difficult. Remember what de Gaulle said when asked what it was like to be president of France. He said, "What do you think it's like trying to run a country with 400 kinds of cheese?" But at the same time, we realize that our products are not safe and healthy. So we've designed products and we analyze chemicals down to the parts per million. This is a baby blanket by Pendleton that will give your child nutrition instead of Alzheimer's later in life. We can ask ourselves, what is justice? And is justice blind or is justice blindness? And at what point did that uniform turn from white to black? Water has been declared a human right by the United Nations. Air quality is an obvious thing to anyone who breathes. Is there anybody here who doesn't breathe? Clean soil is a critical problem, and nitrification, the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico, a fundamental issue that's not being addressed. We've seen the first form of solar energy that's beat the hegemony of fossil fuels in the form of wind here in the Great Plains, and so that hegemony is leaving. And if we remember Sheikh Yamani, when he formed OPEC, they asked him, when will we see the end of the age of oil? I don't know if you remember his answer, but it was, the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. We see that companies acting ethically and in this world are outperforming those that don't. We see the flows of materials in a rather terrifying prospect. This is a hospital monitor from Los Angeles sent to China. This woman will expose herself to toxic phosphorus, release 4 pounds of toxic lead into her children's environment to retrieve from copper. On the other hand, we see great signs of hope. Here's Dr. Venkataswamy in India, who's figured out how to do mass-produced health. He has given eyesight to 2 million people for free. We see in our material flows that car steels don't become car steel again because of the contaminants of the coatings, bismuth, antimony, copper, and so on. They become building steel. On the other hand, we're working with Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, and Shaw Carpet, the largest carpet company in the world. We've developed a carpet that is continuously recyclable down to the parts per million. The upper is nylon 6. That can go back to caprolactam. The bottom, a polyolefin, infinitely recyclable thermoplastic. Now, if I was a bird, the building on my left is a liability. The building on my right, which was our corporate campus for the Gap with an ancient meadow, is an asset. It's nesting grounds. Here's where I come from. I grew up in Hong Kong with 6 million people on 40 square miles. During the dry season, we had 4 hours of water every fourth day. And the relationship to landscape was that of farmers who had been farming the same piece of ground for 40 centuries. You can't farm the same piece of ground for 40 centuries without understanding nutrient flow. My childhood summers were in the Puget Sound of Washington among the first growth and big growth. My grandfather had been a lumberjack in the Olympics, so I have a lot of tree karma I'm working off.